All right, Z, let's bring this gentleman on here, the longtime host of the NFL Matchup Show and the national correspondent for ESPN, the great Sal Paolantonio. Sal, how are you?
Pat, it's Super Wildcard weekend, and I am pumped up. Philadelphia Eagles are going to play on Monday Night Football in Tampa against the Bucs. It really doesn't get any better than this. Back to the scene of the crime. It's fantastic.
It is fantastic. It's a great weekend, an absolute great viewing weekend, unless you're a Kansas City Chiefs season ticket holder. Then it's not that great a weekend, but it's great viewing. I think they all could be really good games, Sal. And later on with Sal, I'm going to name each game and get a comment from Sal as to what he thinks the key to each of those games is going to be. Look forward to doing that. But for now, Sal, let me just start with this. Okay, please. Just give me your 2 paragraphs on how a 10-1 team becomes an 11-6 team. And more to the key, Sal, is after what you've seen the last few weeks, is the trend reversible?
Oh, those are big questions. We could have a TED Talk on it, but I'll give you my best short answers, Pat. I think it is reversible if they go back to playing the style of football that they're capable of playing. So a brief story. In the bowels of Giants Stadium, MetLife Stadium, after the game on Sunday night, I waited for Lane Johnson as he came out of the locker room. I've known him a long time. And I said, Lane, how do you fix this? I didn't say what went wrong. I didn't say anything about the past. I said, how do you fix this? What do you do? And he basically said to me, you're looking at him. He said, we got to lean on our strength. We got to lean on our offensive line. We got to go back to what we can do as a running football team, a team that runs the football, and he said plays play action off of it. It's a simple formula. It's the formula that allowed them to beat the Bucs in September on Monday night, 25-11, when they had 40 carries. DeAndre Swift, Kenneth Gainwell, and Jalen Hurts. They need to run the football in this game more than ever. The Bucs have the best defensive player on both sides of both teams. Antoine Winfield Jr., their free safety. He takes the ball away and he sacks the quarterback on safety blitzes. You want to make him nose around the football. Get him to the line of scrimmage. Get him playing the run. Run the football. Use heavy packages if necessary. Number 2, Pat, watch the weather report. It's supposed to rain really badly on Monday night. Ticket prices on the secondary market are plummeting. You can go to the game from Philadelphia right now. Airfare, hotel, and ticket for $370.
Wow.
So it's going to be raining, and you beat the team running the football the last time, and the offensive line wants to take over, and your quarterback hasn't thrown the football since Sunday because of a dislocated finger in his throwing hand. It all adds up to doing the smart thing. So, yes, it is reversible.
Okay.
And I think it's a matter of approach. And listen, you got the cuz and the coach on this show. I don't even know what I'm doing leading off on this show.
You're leading off.
This is an all-star crew. You got the cuz and the coach. Come on now. Those guys are going to tell you the same thing. The other thing is, in this game, remember this, Pat, and I sent you these notes earlier in the week. Baker Mayfield has been sacked 40 times this year. That's the most of any quarterback entering the playoffs. Sometimes he can hold the ball too long.
Right.
Sometimes the pass protection breaks down. You can get to Baker Mayfield if you shut down his first and second reads, Evans and Godwin.
All right.
You need to play matchup zone on defense, and you need to run the ball on offense.
All right. Let's digest that, Xander. Let's get to our first break here. Sal, when we get back, you were kind enough to send me those notes. I want to rattle off, though, because you just mentioned a blueprint for how they win the game offensively. But minus 59 points in the last 6 weeks. I want you to tell me when we get back how the hell they're going to do it defensively. So let's do. We'll take a break. We'll bring Sal Pao back. We'll talk about when the Tampa Bay Bucs have the ball here on This Week in Pro Football, presented by Kennedy. We're back to This Week in Pro Football, presented by Kennedy. With Pat Callahan here, along with the excellent Sal Paolantonio from ESPN, and the host of the longest-running sports show, that being the NFL Matchup Show. Check it out Saturdays and Sundays on the ESPN networks. All right, Sal. I mentioned before the break, the Eagles' defense has given up, I think, has contributed mightily to the Eagles being a minus 59 in points over the last 6 weeks. You were kind enough to send me these notes showing that these are the Eagles' defensive ranks since week 13. Points per game, 31st. Yards per game, 30th. Third down percentage, 30th. Red zone percentage, 30th. So how do we turn that around? You've already diagnosed the offense. What are the Eagles going to do defensively to get back past these last 6 weeks?
It's Evans and it's Godwin. So when you see Baker Mayfield drop back, I don't know how much they're going to pass the ball. Again, the weather's supposed to be pretty bad. And Todd Bowles has tried to play field position football because Baker Mayfield has had a dodgy ankle and some really painful ribs. They've only scored 22 points in the last 2 games. They did not score a touchdown against the Carolina Panthers, winning that game 9-0. So Bowles has dialed up the run game and a heavy blitz defense against Bryce Young and the Panthers, and they got out of Dodge with the division title. That they can do that against the Eagles, I don't know. I kind of like the Eagles in this game. I like the Eagles in this game because I think across the board they have more talent and they have an offensive line that can dominate. So you got to play matchup against Godwin and against Evans. Jam them at the line of scrimmage. Teams that have been successful against the Bucs have done that, like the Saints. And then you rush Baker Mayfield up the middle so that he can't step up. The Saints did it to perfection twice.
Right.
And then you corral him and you sack him and you give him no escape. When he's on the run, he's got that movable pocket. He's got clear vision. Evans and Godwin can get past the initial bumps in the secondary. That's where he makes his money. That's where Baker Mayfield has always made his money. He did it with Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland, and he's doing it with Dave Canales, now the offensive coordinator for the Bucs. So in my view, that's the way to beat them because they're not a great running team.
Right.
They're not going to light it up in the running game.
Right.
If Baker Mayfield doesn't turn the ball over, the Eagles will have a hard time beating this team because that defense is good enough to stop the Eagles if the Eagles decide that they want to throw the football all over the big sombrero.
Okay. All right, Sal, back to the offensive side of the ball, the notes that you sent me. I noticed in here the Eagles offense is the most predictable in the NFL, according to these notes. We use pre-snap motion on 26% of plays. The league average is 51. Why have the Eagles become so stilted in their offensive presentation?
Pat, the league average for using motion pre-snap is double what the Eagles do. The league average.
Right.
That's it. The Eagles are not vanilla on offense. They're generically vanilla. They're the vanilla that you get in the back of the freezer at the grocery store. It's not Breyers.
Right. It's not Breyers. It's
the generic vanilla.
Yeah, I got it.
So, a player after player that I've talked to, former players, have used this term. It's a high school offense. It's very easy to predict.
Wow.
And that, to me, is a big problem. Yep. It's a big problem in the passing game. There's another number there. Both of those numbers come out of the film study at NFL Films. But the number that is really shocking to me, Jalen Hurts has 38 throwaways. He's thrown the ball away 38 times this year. Second only to Bryce Young, a rookie who basically did nothing in the NFL.
On a 2-15 team, right. Yeah.
He's second to Bryce Young in throwing the football away. That means one option's not open. He evacuates the pocket. You've seen it over and over again. He goes to the sideline. He's throwing the ball into the second row of the stands.
No question. And your colleague, Dan Orlovsky, did a couple of really excellent breakdowns of pass plays in the Giants game in which he ended up throwing the ball away because it didn't seem like they were on the same page, Hurts and his receivers. You mentioned in the notes here, he was the 4th most blitzed quarterback in the league this year. Now, you tell me, with the way you describe Todd Bowles, are there any plays in this game in which the Buccaneers won't blitz Jalen Hurts, and you think the Eagles will be ready for it?
Well, I think Todd Bowles will mix it up, but he would definitely blitz Jalen Hurts because Hurts has thrown 8 interceptions against the blitz, which is most in the National Football. And I think the way to mitigate that and keep the Bucs defense on its heels is just attack through the running game, play power football. You have three guys that are, well, two are all pros, Kelsey and Lane Johnson. Another guy who is an alternate for the Pro Bowl in Mailata at left tackle, and two very good guards on this team. And you should be able to just move the ball at will between the tackles.
Sal, you mentioned that also, too, that this game will come down to the quarterback that has design throws and gets the ball out quickly. Now, Baker Mayfield is a veteran. He knows how to read a defense. You mentioned, though, he holds on to the ball a little bit too long. What about Jalen Hurts? Do you think Hurts has regressed, or do you think he can step back here and reassume total control of this offense?
Well, the numbers show that he's not getting better, that's for sure. And the numbers show that Baker Mayfield can get rid of the ball quickly. He did it against Jacksonville. That's why they, quote unquote, you like this, boat raced the Jaguars in that football game.
Right.
I was there, and they actually put it up on the scoreboard that Baker Mayfield was number 2 to Tua in terms of snap to release time that he gets the ball out of his hands in 2.38 seconds. So he can do it. But you have to have a defense that stops him from doing that. And I think the Eagles can do it. Getting Darius Slay back will be a big help. I would play matchup with Evans. I would have Darius Slay travel with Evans. No question. They have to change it up a little bit. I know that's not their tendency, but in this game, listen, these guys get paid a lot of money to coach this team, and we haven't seen the kind of results. So you're asking me what my opinion is.
Right.
It's my opinion based on my study and the study of various other people who I lean on, and I think that that's the answer.
Okay. All right, Sal. An excellent segue by you. You mentioned the coaching now. Let's just touch on this. Nick Sirianni is under immense pressure right now, both in the Philadelphia media and amongst fans, and just, I'm sure, self-imposed. I mean, he's the coach of a team that's managed to go 1-5 after going 10-1, and it's looked very desultory in going 1-5. Now, my question to you is: the pressure, not insults, but the criticism slung at him, is it fair? This is a guy who's taken the Eagles to the playoffs 3 years out of 3, went to a Super Bowl, almost won it, but they are where they are right now. Is Sirianni fairly under the gun here?
Pat, I go back to The Godfather. This is the business we chose. So all criticism, all analysis is fair if it's handled in a fair manner. And I've said to you many times, I said it to you on your radio show for years, I do not like to speculate about coaches losing their jobs, especially in Philadelphia.
Right.
I think it's just a bad move by a reporter if you're not doing good reporting. There is no evidence that I can see whatsoever at all that Nick Sirianni's job is in jeopardy. None. And that would only come from the front office of the football team, and I don't see any evidence of it whatsoever.
Okay.
So people want to speculate, and there's there's candy out there. There's Bill Belichick. There's Pete Carroll.
You got it right.
Forget it, Pat.
Yeah.
You don't want to bring those guys in here. You don't want to. You just don't want to do that.
Yeah.
You don't.
Yeah, Sal. I mean, I think you're exactly right. I really do. I think sometimes you don't want to descend it. You don't want to be one of those teams that's changing coaches. This guy 3 for 3. I don't know. I think they should. I think it's fixable. All right.
But now here's the thing. Nick Sirianni created some of it by doing what he did with his defensive coordinator, right?
Right.
He takes away play calling duties from Sean Desai and gives it to veteran Matt Patricia. So naturally, people are going to say, well, he claimed it was his offense. Right. He claimed it was his decision to make the change to Matt Patricia. It's the old Harry Truman thing. The buck stops here, right? Where else are you going to go? Right. Now you have the dynamic where the only thing left to do, because you're not getting rid of Jalen Hurts, is to get rid of the head coach.
Right.
I mean, to me, it's more likely that you would bring Nick Saban here to coach his old player than you Bill Belichick. And this is, to me.
But I think Sirianni sometimes is his own worst enemy. His demeanor sometimes can be juvenile, and I think he just needs to up his game there. But hey, the pressure's on him for Monday night. All right, Sal, we have a few minutes left. I want to get your take here. Let me rattle off these other 5 games and just give me a 1 or 2 sentence take. What you're looking at, a key to the game, and who you see maybe coming out on top. We'll do it chronologically. The AFC South Bowl, the usual early Saturday game, Cleveland at Houston.
This is C.J. Stroud against Jim Schwartz. That's the bottom line. If Schwartz can induce Stroud to turn the football over, the Browns win. If C.J. Stroud solves the calculus of Jim Schwartz's defense, look out for the Texans.
All right. Ice Bowl number 3, Sal, coming up Saturday night, Miami. Probably the worst possible fit for Miami, going to -5 Kansas City. Miami terribly beat up the 6th seed at the defending Super Bowl champion.
No one is ready for -5 at night. No one. I don't care who you are.
Right.
But especially if you live in the 305 area code.
That's fair. I don't think Miami has much of a chance here. They're too beat up.
No.
That's a tough call. Does the number 7 seed Pittsburgh Steelers have any kind of puncher's chance with Mason Rudolph against a surging Buffalo Bill team?
I don't believe so, Pat. Without TJ Watt, it's tough. TJ Watt is the one player on their defense who could match up athletically with Josh Allen. I think it's going to be very tough for Pittsburgh to go up to Buffalo and win that game.
I do too. I think they'd have to hold it for 40 minutes and run the ball extremely well in order to.
Well, I think, when Sean McDermott came out and said he was very unhappy with Josh Allen's turnovers in the red zone in Miami, I think that was a precursor for how the coaching points went this week.
Right.
Like we're not going to tolerate that nonsense from you in this game.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, Sal, what I think is a marquee game, Green Bay. Jordan Love travels to who's playing extremely well right now for the Green Bay Packers and their bevy of young anonymous wide receivers. Travels to Dallas. You talk about a team with a lot of pressure on it. The Cowboys, the number 2 seed. They've got to make a deep run here. Does it start Sunday against the Packers?
Well, no team has more dysfunction going into the playoffs than the Eagles, but no team has more pressure than the Cowboys. Yeah. No team. At all. And no player has more pressure than Dak Prescott.
I agree. And no coach, I think, Sal, has more pressure than Mike McCarthy, especially given the events of this week.
Yeah. And Jordan Love, he's playing with house money, man.
Yeah.
He is playing with house money. 18 touchdown passes, 1 interception in his last 8 games. He's productive. He's efficient. Oh, man. Yeah. Wouldn't it be something if the Cowboys lost and the Eagles won?
I said that to you did the Eagles actually luck out here as a 5 seed dropping down? Of course, it won't help them next week if they go to San Francisco, but dropping down now to play Tampa as opposed to playing Green Bay.
Well, wait a minute. I don't even know what the scenario is. Get Xander. Maybe the Cuz knows. What is the scenario? Where would the Eagles play next week if the Cowboys lose and the Eagles win?
Well, I mean, I think that if the Cowboys lose, then the Eagles would miss San Francisco because the 7 seed Packers would go to San Francisco. The Cowboys would then play the winner of Rams.
No, the Cowboys are done.
I'm sorry.
The Cowboys lose. The Eagles will play a home game, right?
If the Rams beat the Lions. Yes.
And the Rams are going to be – so it could be Rams at Eagles, Pat.
Well, that last game, Sal, Rams at Lions. Rams are just shocking what they've pulled off, the exact opposite of the Eagles. Do they have a chance going into to play a team that hasn't been to the playoffs or hosted a playoff game in a long time?
Yeah, I think the Lions secondary probably can't handle what firepower the Rams have. It'll be a very, very emotional game for Matthew Stafford and for Jared Goff.
Right.
And, whatever quarterback responds to the emotion of the moment, that's the quarterback that's going to win the game.
Yeah. That is a fascinating game there.
Oh, yeah.
You guys having switched uniforms. So, all right, Sal Pal, listen, where are you going this weekend? Where can we find you and how do you lead in the matchup show?
Uncle Sal is going to NFL Films, going to tape the NFL matchup show in beautiful downtown Mount Laurel, New Jersey, then drive to the Philly airport and get down to Tampa for Monday Night Football.
Great. Good. Look forward to your reporting there, Sal. You better bring the galoshes. At least you don't need the socks. Just bring the galoshes And we look very much forward to watching the matchup show and your reporting on Monday night. And I want you back here next week because we're going to have a ton to talk about next week. Hopefully an Eagle victory. We'll see. All right.
I like the Eagles in the game, Pat. 23-20. I like them a little bit, just a little bit.
All right, Sal, thanks very much for joining me tonight, and have a safe trip, and we'll talk to you next week. All right, the great Sal Paolantonio joining me there. Great discussion with him. It always is. Always is. He's just a font of information. All right, listen, we get back here. My close colleague, Sean Green's going to join me. We're going to talk some props and some spreads and some very cold weather in Kansas City. We'll do that all next on This Week of Pro Football, presented by Kennedy Ford.